Guess who? It's the late evening. Do you know where your Denver Broncos are? Hopefully sleeping. They have an early morning Friday, a training camp morning. What do they need to get out of their training camp? Well, the obvious answer to that is they need to get out healthy, right? Because above all else, that's what you hope for from training camp. To emerge intact in one piece. With as many healthy players as you had going in. Inevitably, of course, you have some injuries, some pulled muscles. But as long as they're not too severe, you can get by, let them heal, and be ready for the season to come. But that's the most important thing. What you want to get out of training camp is good health and be intact. But there are other things. We're going to get into that here on this Thursday night edition of Denver Football After Dark. Hello there. Mace here. It's a little earlier than the previous nights. We started doing this a few nights ago as we fade down the music. Started doing this a few nights ago. It was midnight, and I did say that we'll probably get this thing a little earlier in the evening, owing to training camp actually starting on Friday at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, here in the spirit of being a little bit more mellow late at night, or for those of you joining me early in the morning watching on delay, or if you're in the early morning in Europe, welcome. I'm not going to say BP, PBCS really fast as sometimes I say with Cecil Lammey on Orange and Blue today, but out there at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, we're all kind of required to say that. It's the start of something. The dawn of training camp. Broncos fans, Friday morning, a few hundred lucky Broncos fans will get their first glimpse of the team in the bleachers set up beyond the south wall at their training facility. The team is new for the year. Everything is new and different about this year's training camp, of course, owing to the construction of the new building over there on the west flank. It's coming together nicely, but of course, it does mean far fewer fans, unfortunately, than in previous years. And a further unfortunate circumstance, at least in my opinion, is that there isn't a stadium practice. It's been a while since there was a stadium practice. Those used to be pretty routine for the Broncos. A few years ago, I think it was as recently as 2019, covering a practice down at what is now known as Empower Field at Mile High. But they've gone away. I don't think they're coming back anytime soon, partially because the business of the stadium involves summer concerts, and summer concerts, of course, involve a pretty extensive setup and teardown. Thus, with that in play, doesn't seem like we're going to be seeing a practice at the stadium anytime in the near future. Thus, all the practices out at the facility and only a few hundred lucky fans every day. I will say, this is my public service announcement for those who do have tickets, and if you can't make it, please go through the process that is available and return them via Ticketmaster so other fans who do click to see if they're available tickets can go. The link to that is actually on my story from today's practice at denversports.com. It leads with an item on Quinn Meinerz, who I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. And that goes to the ticket availability for Friday's practice. So if you've got tickets and you can't go, make sure you get in the system, return them, and then hopefully a couple other fans can use them. So that's my PSA for those who possibly can't make it, to make sure that those bleachers are as full as possible. Anyhow, let's talk about something on the field, because Kodiak Broncos podcast brings up, is Courtland Sutton participation in the team portion of practice as minimal as Lindsay and Zach are making it out to be? I think they're probably making too much of this. He was out there, did catch a pass in the 7-on-7 period. I mean, there's first of all, there are two team periods and there's one 7-on-7 period. And that means you're looking at 12 reps, and some of those team period reps, or there's 8 team period reps, and some of those are run plays. And okay, he gets the ball once. I mean, what's the worry that he's not necessarily as involved? They're moving players around. You're experimenting with different packages. Sean Payton likes to move players up and down the depth chart. He did say that he's got players in 3 buckets, and we don't know what his plans are. We're not privy to the exact practice plans for players. He's got buckets for veterans. He's got buckets for players coming off of recent injuries. He's got a bucket for players with injury histories. Okay. You could say Courtland Sutton, as an 8-year veteran who has an ACL tear in his past, actually falls into 2 of those buckets. Each of those buckets will have repetitions limited. So personally, I think Zach and Phil are probably making too much, and they're probably reading too much into the reps. He was out there both days. He had a catch in 7-on-7. I mean, we haven't seen Devon Vele really involved from a pass catching perspective so far, but he's out there going through the drills, just like Courtland Sutton is going through the drills, and there isn't this big kerfuffle about Devon Vele. I think sometimes you've got people who are really fishing for a storyline that isn't there. That's my take on it. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I was going to get to that at some point, but Kodiak Broncos podcast, might as well get to that now. I guess in some ways, even though this is mellow and a little bit slower here in late evening or sometimes the wee small hours of the morning, it does turn into my airing of grievances, shall we say. But yeah, I don't think it's too big a deal. I wouldn't make too much of it. Courtland Sutton's out there, catching passes, going through drills. Let's just let it play out. Again, he's a veteran. And you saw, for example, we don't, Mike McGlinchey wasn't out there today. Sean Payton said there's a veteran bucket of guys who will be on managed reps, that they will be watching their rep counts. And of course, Mike McGlinchey also falls into the category of player with an injury history as well, because he's been on injured reserve multiple times over the course of his career, as well as being an 8-year veteran, just like Courtland Sutton. So, everyone just kinda take a take a breath here. We've all been through 6 months without Broncos games, and I think and there's a lot of excitement about this team, and it's fun to talk about it, but sometimes we just gotta let things breathe a bit. I think the best thing to do is sort of report what's happening day to day, but keep it in the proper context and not jump to conclusions about it based on one day. You get to say, or even 2 days, you get to 5, 6, 7 days in a pattern, and then perhaps you can start to discern something. But through 2 acclimation days, we're not there. We're not there. So, anyway, straight up takes. Yeah, straight up. That's what I wanna do. Just keep it real here and, keep it keep it on the level. No caffeine in this, by the way, it's too late. It's a little cold caffeine-free herbal tea. So, Denver football after dark here on this Thursday night. Thanks for joining me. I see the live audience, checking in. Sean Phillips Smith, 13-4 this year. I predicted 11-6 when I went through the schedule back in May, and I'm sticking with that pick. I don't really see much reason to change that just yet. I think 11-6 and probably second place in the division. There's an opportunity to finish him first. I think that week 3 game against the Los Angeles Chargers will probably tell us a great deal about both teams, really. Which one has the more robust challenge to the Kansas City Chiefs? Or certainly the Chiefs could fall back a bit, but I don't necessarily think the Chiefs are a worse team today than they were in January. They may be due for some statistical regression, though, after all the close wins of last year. I'd sort of put the statistical hat on at this point and say that regression to the mean is a thing. It does happen, and the Chiefs are inevitably due for that, but we'll see. RMAC 15, your expectations of Bo Nix this year. Improvement. I think if we're putting a number on it, I don't let's we'll start with like a base level number, like like passer rating, which is a flawed metric. And really, if you're doing a cross era comparison, I keep era adjusted passer rating here on my computer, and every year or so I go back and update it. But just for this year, for last year and this year, if you're going by his rating, I expect it to be somewhere in the 98, 99 range, and that would put him somewhere in the top dozen quarterbacks if you want just kind of a base level number, something like that. I think but I like to I like to go through multiple metrics. I like to take about 6 or 8 different things, EPA per play, CPOE, etcetera. Even, the PFF grade, that sort of thing. And I think on balance, if we look and see him in that top dozen, that's actually where I expect him to be. And probably on the low end of the top dozen, maybe like 10 to 12. I think if he's there, you feel really good about where he is. I think you're excited about that. If you have a quarterback who is somewhere between 10 to 12 or even 13, if we're gonna go Baker's dozen, get the 13th donut in there, then that's a quarterback that with whom you can win, especially with this roster being pretty sound for the most part. Again, I often say George Paton has done a marvelous restoration job on the roster overall. There are more than 53 NFL caliber players on the roster. 2 years ago, I couldn't say that. Now I think they're going to end up cutting players who are of NFL caliber. I said to, I believe it was Ryan Edwards, my good friend today. We were having a conversation, and I threw out the number where I said, I believe there's 60 NFL caliber players out there, possibly more, but 60 players of an NFL caliber that I feel pretty good about on this team. That wasn't the case 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And for George Paton to do that, despite the Russell Wilson trade and the loss of draft capital, and despite the Sean Payton trade and losing draft capital there, tip of the cap to him. So, good job, George. But I'm I've become a George Payton believer. He's convinced me. He's convinced me over the years. I like it. I like his style. I like the fact that when he's making a trade, he's about getting a fair deal. Want to make a good deal, but it's a fair deal. Not simply about trying to win the deal, but make a fair deal. Because if you're focused on making a fair deal, then that means you're keeping the lines of communication open to make a future deal and keeping more possibilities open for future deals. You wanna be able to deal with all the other 31 teams. You don't wanna have some teams that say, "Oh, we don't wanna deal with them." You go to Major League Baseball, for example, and the Colorado Rockies have a reputation for overvaluing their own players and being a little bit tough to deal with because they tend to not necessarily be realistic about the value of what they possess and don't want to give you what most would consider to be a fair deal, and that's sometimes why you don't see them making deals that they should, and that's my cross sport rant, especially here with the Major League Baseball trade deadline nearing. Kodiak Broncos podcast. Miners feels less intimidating without the dreads. Yeah, that was a news item today. The dreads are gone. When Miners got a haircut. Said it was time. He'd had him for 6 years, said it was just time to get rid of him, time to move on, another phase of life. It it was interesting listening to Quinn Meinerz today because he was reflective and philosophical. It's been a heck of a 12 months for him, a little over 12 months. Of course, he gets the contract, he gets the team captaincy, he becomes an all-pro. With the team captaincy, of course, comes responsibility, leadership. He acknowledged a few months ago that he struggled with that burden of responsibility that came with leadership, and particularly early in the season. That first game in Seattle, he acknowledged was one of the worst games of his career. He quickly put it behind him, of course, and turned in a very stellar all-pro season, but it took him a while to really find his voice and find his footing as a leader. And so I asked him on Thursday, what were the lessons he learned about leadership in his first year as a team captain? And really, I thought he gave a terrific answer that I think actually extends beyond leadership in terms of the insight he provided, and I think it's something that always is worth listening to. There's a lot of wisdom here from this 20-something young man. Here's Quinn Meinerz talking about it.
I think I put too much pressure on myself to almost like fit into a role versus just being myself and being who I am, because that's why I was picked to do that. It was just because of who I am. So I feel a lot less pressure about any of that this year. Who I am is more than good enough, and that was something I struggled with a little bit last year. So yeah, I'm excited to have that mentality moving forward and not having to battle through that.
I feel like I'm gonna get all Stuart Smalley here, but who you are is good enough. You're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. Like Quinn had to realize I'm good enough. He's a team captain because of who he is. His authentic self is what brought him to that position where his teammates wanted him to be one of their representatives. And then when that light bulb went on and he realized, hey, I don't have to be a different guy. I've just got to be Quinn Meinerz. And then he settled down and had the best season of his career and was, in my opinion, the best guard in football. And now he's looking to do even more than that, wants to improve in his run blocking in particular. He had a very good run blocking season. And of course, the Broncos, number one in the league in run block win rate last year. And now they hope they've got the guys behind them at running back to actually turn that success and run block win rate into plenty of yardage. So, Jules, will there be any change to the team captain since all 6 from last year are still on the roster? Yeah, it's always interesting because, for example, Mike McGlinchey returned last year, but then Quinn Meinerz became the captain. And I think that was not so much on Mike. It's like, I mean, so you went from Mike to Quinn. Was that a bad thing? Not really. I mean, certainly Mike is still a leader on the team, even though he doesn't have the C patch on his jersey. That, I think, was more about Quinn really earning his spot and getting that contract. It was more that Quinn ascended to that level and being a kind of a homegrown Bronco, someone he'd been drafted, he'd worked his way up, he was part of the same class as Pat Surtain, that there was some kind of sentiment among guys that, like, okay, like he's one of our own, and then somebody who kind of was came in as a free agent like Mike McGlinchey. Like, so I think there was some of that working as well. Garrett Bowles is a leader, but he doesn't have the C patch on his jersey. So leadership doesn't just come from the guys with the captain's patches, but it certainly does mean something. I would be surprised if there's anybody else, if there are any changes there. I mean, maybe you could, nothing stopping you from having, even more. Maybe you could add a captain or two. Who knows? But I see no reason why there would be any major changes there. Al Hamilton, for example, was a captain last year. He was injured, but he was still around. Like, watching him on the sideline once he got to a point after surgery where he could be back with the team and back on the bench and traveling with the team, watching the way he interacted, just because he wasn't playing didn't mean he wasn't leading. And you see the way guys react to him in practice. I mean, he's still very much one of the leaders of the team. So, hey, Detroit Mission Control, good seeing you, man. It's actually fun to see a lot of the familiar names here that I know have been following me and watching and reading my stuff. That's one of the cool things and gratifying things here. Detroit also wants a daily punter update. No update because there was no punter period at the Thursday acclimation period. It was kicking day. It was a place kicking and kickoff day. So not every day is going to be a punter day. Of course, that means Jeremy Crawshaw's involvement is holding for Will Lutz. From a distance, it looked fine. This was one of the days where the work was on the far field. There are two fields, of course, at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, two full fields, and then one about three-quarters field way over on the other side. Well, there are two fields, two primary fields, an east field and a west field. The bleachers that are on the south end that those of you who go to practice will sit in, those bleachers are going to be closer to the east field, which is where the Broncos facility, the current Broncos headquarters building is and has been since 1990. The new building over toward the field house, that's the west field. Today they were on the west field. Yesterday they were on the east field. They often go back and forth. They like to keep the wear and tear on the fields even. I'm hoping that for the sake of the fans in the bleachers, they'll go on that east field as much as possible, because if they do, and especially if they go red zone in the east field and the south end toward them, the bleachers there are going to get one heck of a show. It's going to be an up close view right there, closer than you'd be even if you were sitting behind the end zone in the stadium and having seats right there in the front rows. It will be a tremendous vantage for people to watch. So that's what I'm hoping. So we'll see. But if you happen to be there on a day where they're on the east field, you might get quite a show, quite an up close view of what's going on with the Broncos. So make sure you check all that out. William, when sleep doesn't come, Mace comes in to sing you a Denver Bronco lullaby. I wish there was a tune to it. I mean, there is kind of a Denver Bronco fight song. It actually is to the tune of the University of Northern Colorado fight song. And a few years ago, they started dusting that off, and they still play it before the game. And they tried to play it after touchdowns for a minute, but nobody really caught on to it, and it died a death. I know part of the lyric is the spirit of the lyrics includes the spirit of the West will always be the best. Da-da-da-da-da-da. But that's not really a lullaby. Lullaby's got to be slow and mellow and smooth. 6:30, woke up and now listening to this. What a start to a Friday. Hi, everyone. Then you've got to be in Europe or Africa then. Appreciate you, Jules, checking in. Whisper me. Okay. I'll whisper right now. But I don't think you can hear me very well. Dennis, I am worried about RJ holding on to the ball. Surprised Sean drafted a guy who is prone to fumbling. Drafted a guy who they believe they can correct that with. So that is something that does come up with RJ Harvey. It's probably part of the reason why you're talking about him late second rather than earlier, because you can't deny the explosiveness, the vision, the burst. All of the other tools are there with him. He does look different than the other backs when he gets it. The only running back who is comparable in terms of that lightning burst is Jaleel McLaughlin, but he does that at 21, 22 pounds lighter than RJ Harvey. RJ does that with a thick build that can bounce off people, and that's pretty special. But he's got to hang on to the ball. So far, so good. He has not put the ball on the ground in any of the practices we have seen so far. So that is, of course, that we've seen OTAs. We saw 3 minicamp days. We've now seen 2 acclimation days. But of course, we have not seen the pads go on just yet. And I always say, let's let it play out. So far, so good. That's all we got is a so far. Anyway, I already took that and took that. So anyway, appreciate that. I wish on here there was a way to say, okay, I already got that and go on to the next thing. So anyhow, shows Bo Nix all wearing a Guardian helmet. That's a photo from last year. I haven't taken any photos from this year yet. Well, I was calling it, mentioning the photo that I had in the intro, which of course is right here. Now, I took that photo last year of Bo Nix, and that's a Guardian cap that he has on. I actually just got my rental lens in, so I'll take some photos of Bo Nix tomorrow. I took some photos of Bo Nix earlier at OTAs and minicamp. That's where I took that photo of Evan Ingram as well. So, yeah, in addition to doing all this, I take photos during the open to media period of practice because I need art for stuff like this. So, I appreciate you noticing, though. That's a good catch. Jules, do you think SP is sometimes too quick in letting a player fall through right into the doghouse? How many mistakes shall a player be allowed to do? Okay, let's talk about Audric Estime, for example. I mean, it wasn't the first fumble in preseason, right? It was pattern it took. It was fumbles accumulating. It was coming back from injured reserve after the pattern of fumbles and then immediately fumbling what in his second game, not immediately, his second game back. So pretty quickly, not too many touches before he put the ball on the ground again against New Orleans. That led to the, let's face it, a pretty embarrassing punishment of having to carry the football around the facility and have people instructed to try to get the ball out of his grasp. That was that was straight out of college. When I heard about that, I'm like, that sounds like something you'd see in, you know, a freshman at, like, Alabama or Notre Dame or something. It didn't sound like something you experienced in the NFL. So it wasn't like a first thing. It happens over time. So I would say not I don't think he's too quick to have somebody get into the doghouse. I think it always takes an accumulation of things. And we don't know how other things. We don't know about what's going on in every practice because we don't see every practice. We don't again, we aren't privy to all the information. We can only this is where you can only get but so much. And you get indications that maybe other things are going on, that maybe there's a fumble or 2 in practice, that the pattern continues in practice. You don't have all the information, and so it's never but in my experience with Sean Payton and what I've seen about a doghouse, it's never been one thing. It's never even been 2 things. It's an accumulation. He's always been somebody who it takes more than one thing to find to find in the doghouse. And that's the way most coaches Or I say most. Occasionally, you'll see like a Bill Belichick who it seems like he does make a cut after one thing, like he'll cut a player after a muff punt return. I think that happened after a Broncos game back 10 years ago. Muffed the punt in the snow. Broncos recovered 2 days later, waiver wire. So anyhow, so Kodiak asking, which of the four Broncos contract extensions do you think gets announced first? I I'm going to guess, and it is a guess. I'm gonna just say that. I'm going to guess Zach Allen. Could be wrong, but I'm gonna guess Zach Allen gets done first. Don't have any particular knowledge, but that's just the guess I'm going to make. With Zach, what we have seen, not just last year, but the second half of the 2023 season is some special talent manifesting. I did mention on an earlier show the stat about 40 quarterback hits last year that no interior defensive lineman had done in a season since Aaron Donald in 2018, which should grab any football enthusiast's attention. The fact that he played over 80% of the snaps last year as a defensive lineman is insane. Sean Payton has talked about how he's got to restrict that. But the fact that he had the endurance to do it tells you what kind of condition he was in and that it did not affect the quality of play from him. Says a lot about the shape he is in as well. Now, they're going to consciously try to hold him back a little bit, but he wasn't asking to come off the field. The guy wants more. He's kind of a machine. He's a really special player. Maybe the best thing that Vance Joseph has done in the 2+ years he's been on the job with the Broncos is recommend Zach Allen and bring him here because holy cow, was VJ right about him. Because there was reason to be a little wary of that move. Remember, the Broncos basically they let Draymond Jones go to bring in Zach Allen. Draymond Jones was really productive. We all remember him. Zach Allen, the one thing that nobody was quite certain of was what is he going to do without JJ Watt drawing the attention because Zach's best season in Arizona was 2022, the year that JJ was healthy and had a season that was a renaissance that harkened back to his salad days in Houston. And of course, JJ, who always had a sense of the theatrical, realized I can go out on a high. Farewell. Leave him wanting more. So that was sort of the one thing that you wondered about Zach Allen. What is he going to be like without JJ Watt drawing the attention? Well, now we see Zach Allen drawing the attention, and he's wrecking things. He he wrecked a pass play today. That's just who he is. He gets the attention, he gets the double, and he's still doing things. I mean, it's an interesting thing to ask yourself when you watch the Broncos, you watch their pass rush. You have Nick Bonito leads them in sacks, and you have Zach Allen who leads them in quarterback hits. And you say, okay, which one is actually the bigger driving force? They work well together, and certainly They go well together, but if you took one out, who would be the more indispensable? That's a really fascinating question. You hope you don't have to find out, but it would be interesting to look at and say, okay, who is the more indispensable part? Who has the more special skill set? Who is the more irreplaceable? One could probably say, with the quality of depth at edge, the more irreplaceable part might be Zach Allen. Not that you don't have a reasonably deep defensive line, but you have a better chance perhaps of being able to approximate Nick Bonito with the quality of reserves you have at edge, especially with Q Robinson showing some signs of maybe being an absolute steal. Again, we'll see when the pads go on, but hey, he had another play that would have been a sack in game conditions today. So every day we see Q Robinson making a play. Every single day. That every single practice that I have had the chance to watch this offseason, Q Robinson has had a play that would have been a sack in game conditions. Yes, it's without pads, but when you have a pattern, I always say look for patterns. When you look for patterns, when you have a pattern of Q Robinson and D'Andrea Tillman, who also had a sack in game conditions. D'Andrea, he had missile lock on Jarrett Stidham, and he went, whoa, hey, QBs are don't touch. And when you see it over and over and over again, okay, this guy's pretty good. So, yeah, there's the Kodiak with the stat. That's absurd. Yeah. Zach Allen, man, the guy last year, I mean, he missed him in Las Vegas, but, like, man, when he played, the dude was made of iron. Beast. Like, that's the best way of putting it, Jermaine. Absolute beast. Credit to VJ. Like, he made sure he came here. Make sure he came here. Actually, the thing you worry about, if you don't get Dak re-signed here during the season, if the Broncos defense does so well that VJ uses that to leapfrog back to the head coaching ranks, and he says, "Zach, I wanna bring you with me," and Zach wants that more than anything because he's only played for Vance Joseph. It's the only defensive play caller he's ever known. DJ was his defensive coordinator in Arizona, his defensive coordinator here, and I would actually think that VJ, if and when he's a head coach again, think he might call defenses at his next stop. He didn't call the defense in Denver. He left that to Joe Woods, but I suspect that if and when he's a head coach again, he might take a little more control of that. I think he believes that maybe he should have actually taken the reins of the defense when he was here that last time. So he'll do he'll do a lot better next time he's a head coach. I think so. I think he's going to be one of those coaches. I hate the term retread because it's got a negative connotation, but there's a pretty good history of coaches that learn from the first time around and do better. I think he's going to be one of those coaches. So why doesn't Allen get any props in the NFL? Well, he was second team All Pro, but 40 quarterback hits, again, doing that thing that nobody since Aaron Donald had done among interior defensive linemen. Like, he should have been first team All Pro. The voters messed that up. I don't get a vote. They messed that up. Next year, I should do Mace's All Pro. That was the biggest miss, I thought, that Zach Allen would have been first team. I didn't have many quibbles with the All Pro team last year. That was the one that sort of that was the one that got me because that seemed to be a pretty easy call. The exceptionality of that accomplishment. So, what are the chances our owners throw the bag at him to keep VJ around if it comes to that? It's not about the bag, Sean. Sean Payton is not going to stand in the way of one of his assistants becoming a head coach. He didn't stand in the way of his assistants moving up to become coordinators last year. He didn't block them. That was from leaving. That wasn't a thing. He gave 3 of his assistants promotions to assistant head coach. Jim Leonard, Davis Webb, Zach Strief. They're still position coaches, obviously, but they're assistant head coaches now. He's very rigid about wanting to make sure that his coaches get chances to move up. His philosophy is, I want my tree to have branches. That's his. It's a legacy thing for him, but it's also kind of a thing about it's doing the right thing. Like, he remembers what it was like as an assistant coach trying to move up. He won't block VJ. He won't block VJ, and I don't think he'll try to keep him around. I think he'll be like, if you believe in this job, you believe it's the right place to go and go and succeed. And also, I think with Jim Leonard on the staff, you've got a pretty good potential internal replacement if VJ becomes a head coach. So I think that's going to be okay. Why don't you max your profile pick? I I don't know. uh, I don't really think about it. Not even my profile pick on Twitter. Um, okay, yeah, I've been asked about that, and that's like just I love my late dog Rupert, and I'm keeping it that way. I can't I can't let that one go. So uh, that's personal for me. So anyhow, oh goodness gracious, Denver football after dark here on a Thursday night, a training camp eve, which was the night before training camp, and all through the house. Not a creature was stirring, and I lost the rhyme scheme right then and there. Lots of good comments. Carl Morgan from Orange County, California. Hey, not too far from Los Angeles, of course, where the Broncos are going to be in September. Hope you're going to be out there for the Chargers game. Hopefully I'll see you. Oh, Jermaine following up on the pineapples and pepperoni discussion from last night, and it didn't work. Oh, man. Oh, you did it with the Canadian bacon. Oh, see, I was thinking like pineapple and pepperoni with the pineapple in place of the Canadian bacon. Okay. All right. So that's an interesting combo. I actually I did the meat lover. I did a meat lover thing last week on a pizza, but I haven't done pineapple, Canadian bacon, and pepperoni as well. So, all right. All right. So we're still open on the pineapple and pepperoni then to follow that up from last night. Absolute treasure to Broncos country. I don't know about that, but I'm just hanging in there. Pineapple, pepperoni, and bacon. No, but I am intrigued. How much sleep do you get each night? Okay. What time are you up at training camp every morning? My alarm will go off at 7:30 Mountain Time. I will probably be out the door at about 8, about 8:25, 8:30. I'm about a 15, 20-minute drive from the Broncos facility to training camp. And I'll quickly get set up. And then as the players take the field and warm up, I'll take some pictures. It's a good chance to get some candid photos of the quarterback. So, hey, you want another photo of Bo Nix? You'll get some photos of Bo Nix tomorrow as I shoot them, and the quarterbacks as well. And then I'll take attendance. Always take attendance at the start of practice. That's something all beat reporters do. And then practice will go about 10 to 12, and then post-practice interviews usually end up leaving about at the start of training camp, we'll be done about 12:30 or so, and then I'll shoot my stand-up, drive back home, I'll edit my stand-up, get the video that you see on social media and you see here on YouTube. I'll cut some video that I'll put a couple of sound bites up on social media, cut some video for Orange and Blue Today, write most of my recap. If I get it done, great. If not, I'll post it afterward. Do Orange and Blue Today, finish off that, take a little break, some dinner. Tomorrow, I'll probably spend about a half hour, 45 minutes going through photos, picking out some that will end up being used in the future at denversports.com, and then here, get some elements ready. Actually, getting this show ready does not take much time because I just use clips that I use in Orange and Blue Today. One of the things I do try out in this is to make sure that this show requires a very minimal setup time. This show took me 5 minutes to set up. The picture here, the one that you saw at the start of the show, this thing, that took me 5 minutes to do, and that was it. 5 minutes, done. And then I wrote an intro to the show, and we were off and running. So that's one of the things about this. I wanted to try to create something that did not require much, if any, extra work to get going, but allowed me to get some extra reps, experiment with some things. I'll try some different show elements here as we get through training camp. I've got a couple of ideas I'm going to throw in, maybe a pre-produced package or two that I do. But the goal is to not have it add much more to my work day than I'm already doing. So one thing I am looking forward to is doing some of these shows late night after games, because if you're like me, you can get pretty wired on a game day and it takes a while to kind of come down. Say week 1, Broncos Titans, for example, 11 PM that night, I am not ready to calm down. I am not ready to go to bed. My brain is still going. I may have filed my story at 9:30 and I posted my video at 6:45, 7:00, but I'm still going through it. By then, I've already started rewatching the game. So, Denver football after dark will probably run 11:00 PM after, on a game night, and I'm gonna have a lot to say. Hopefully I have good things to say after those games, especially after week 1, because my goodness, if the Broncos don't win that week 1 game against Tennessee, yikes. By the way, I wish I had the clip here. I don't know if any of you saw when the clip from when the Titans brass was asked if believed they were a Super Bowl team, because everybody says they're a Super Bowl team, and they did their best to try to affirm that, "Oh, yeah, that's our goal, but we have a long way to go." Like, basically saying without saying, "We have no chance," they admitted, "We have no chance," which you never hear in the NFL. Even bad teams usually will say, "Hey, Our goal is to get to the Super Bowl. And they, without admitting it, admitted they're not going anywhere this year. Oh man. I mean, I wish they would have just said the word rebuilding because that's what they are. It's okay. It's not a bad word, but man, holy cow. Roger, should we be worried about Pat Bryant's speed? No, because he gets open in other ways. Like he has a veteran's savvy at reading coverage, especially zone coverages, finding gaps there. For somebody who doesn't have a lot of time speed, he certainly was getting open quite a bit during OTAs and minicamp. That was a thing that encouraged me as I watched him. So that's not something that I'd say I'm particularly worried about right now. Plays faster than his speed. So any given Sunday, Donald Wilson. Yep, it's the beauty of this game. Any given Sunday. Burt Bell said that. Commissioner back in the 50s. On any given Sunday, any team can beat any other team. And my late father, when he and I would go to Tampa Bay Buccaneer games, and they were terrible when I was a kid, and that's what he would always say, that we'd be driving to the stadium. He'd remind me the whole thing. On any given Sunday, a team can beat any other team. And every so often, there'd be an upset right before my eyes. That's what keeps us going. It's part of it. The unknown, the fact that when the Broncos are bad, they can pull off an upset. Of course, now that the Broncos are back to contention again, you can be on the business side of that. So too funny, but hey, a rookie quarterback has never won a Super Bowl. So yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, okay. Actually, there are, Mac. First time for everything, though. Someday, but not this year. The roster's a mess. Roster's a mess. I don't want to say anything bad about Brian Callahan. He, of course, was here. I think fondly of him. But first year wasn't great as a head coach. Think he needs more time. Think he can do some good things with Cam Ward, but boy, that's a tough situation. And then he changed GMs. The Titans right now, they're like the Bears in that they don't really have alignment. Like the Bears, like they'll change the GM one year, they'll change the coach another year, and they'll change the quarterback. Like they've struggled to have alignment. And the Titans will change the coach and then they'll change the GM. It's like, where's the alignment, right? Right now, they changed the GM and the quarterback, but then the coach came in the previous year. It's like, okay, it's misaligned, and Callie may find himself on the business end of that if they can't show progress. And then the problem with that is if you change head coaches, and of course you got Callie's an offensive-minded head coach, and you're going to change things on Cam Ward. Of course, now the Bears are doing that with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, which basically wasted last year for Caleb, but now he's in a much better situation with Ben Johnson. So well, it's why the Broncos are in such good shape. Is like, okay, Bo Nix is only going to have Sean Payton. The Broncos kind of did it right with Bo. If you really think about it, like they sort of stumbled on something accidentally with George Paton being the right kind of personality for Sean Payton, someone who could handle the seismograph in a 7.5 that Sean Payton can be, because George is nice and even to contrast with that. And then Sean Payton picking his quarterback and then doing so a year after building the offensive line, which is another thing about alignment, is that If you're going to build a quarterback, make sure the protection is in front of that quarterback first before you pick him. It's what the Broncos did right. It's what a lot of teams do wrong is they don't get that line fortified to a reasonable level before you put that quarterback in there, and then you have that quarterback running for their life. I've seen that so many times over the years. To me, it's where the Patriots let Drake May down last year. I think they were, 31st, I believe, off the top of my head in pass block win rate. I don't have it in front of me. They were bottom 3, I believe, in pass block win rate. And so Drake May, he's fending for himself back there. What he did, in spite of the lack of protection in front of him, was remarkable. Bo Nix gets to be behind the number 1 line in pass block win rate. So he got a chance to settle in, and he had the best chance to develop. And you got a really true evaluation on him. And he had a chance to gain confidence and succeed. Build the line before you get a quarterback. I mean, that is the one thing I would tell any GM if they were taking over, but they knew they had to draft a quarterback at some point. I would say, get your protection right first. And it's unsexy, I know, because everyone wants to get the shiny object. And next year's going to be another quarterback draft, by the way. I mean, it's Klubnik, maybe Arch Manning, Nussmeier. Broncos aren't going to be talking about that, but a lot of people are going to be talking quarterbacks next year. Those teams seeking quarterback, I hope you got your line right, because that's what you need to do if you want to give them the best chance. Do you think Jaden Daniels would have been Rookie of the Year if he played for the Broncos, Albert and Michelle Knoppers? Yes, I absolutely do think he would have been Rookie of the Year if he played for the Broncos. And I can say this about Jaden Daniels. If we kind of go down the rabbit hole of alternate history, if the Broncos had bottomed out and had a really bad season in 23, if do an alternate history thing, let's say Green Bay isn't called for holding when they're driving for what would have been a game-winning field goal in week 7 of 2023, and the Packers win in Denver. And the Broncos are 1-6. Okay. All right. We get a trade offer for Justin Simmons, and we deal him. We get a trade offer for Jerry Jeudy, and we deal him then. Okay. So the sale happens even a week before the deadline, because why not? And the morale plummets, and instead of beating Kansas City, that great upset, the Broncos lose, and they're 1-7 at the bye. And of course, that was when, as it turned out, all the stuff went down behind the scenes with Russell Wilson, as we learned later. The potential benching, blah blah blah. And let's say it would actually have been Russ getting benched, and then they're 1-7, and they go to Buffalo Monday Night Football, and at that point, the season kind of goes off the rails, and they go, I don't know, 4-13, 3-14, and pick second. I think in a season like that, the Broncos would have picked top 3, and I think Jaden Daniels would have been their quarterback. Picking 2, probably. It's actually not hard to kind of see a scenario where that would have happened, and I think Daniels would have been the pick. And then I think he would have been Rookie of the Year in that instance. What basically was with Bo Nix, it's you didn't have a chance at the top 3, so you had to narrow. So the Broncos narrowed their focus to the next 3. Okay, like that, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. They were impossible to get. Your possible quarterbacks were Penix, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy. Which one did you like best? Could you fall in love with any of those 3? Because the other 3 were impossibilities. It came down to those 3, and Bo Nix was the one with whom they fell in love. Simple as that. When somebody is ruled out, you have to go to the other pool. It's like this year. They weren't going to get Ashton Genty because the cost was too high. Go on to the next pool of guys. That's RJ Harvey. There you go. And that's where the price was right. So, Sharon, now remember to hit the like button. Yeah, this is my chance to tell you like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. It's a little different. It's a little different without my man Cease here. I know a lot of you are also followers of Orange and Blue today, so thanks for indulging me for a little bit. Big E Broncos. Since Noah Fant was released, would you sign him to a 1-year deal? I would. I don't believe the Broncos will. There's no indication they're going to add Noah Fant. I will admit this is where sometimes initial bias gets a hold of me from a evaluation perspective. I've always believed in Noah, liked him coming out. Actually strike that. I loved him coming out of Iowa. I love the pick. I love that pick more than most Broncos first round picks. And boy, after that first year, I thought these guys have a budding superstar. And turned out he's had a good career, a solid career. Not great. Good. Not a bust. He's played 6 years. His Broncos seasons end up being pretty productive. I think there's probably still a little bit more left, and certainly there will be an injury somewhere to a tight end somewhere, and some team will bring him in. But the Broncos I don't believe will be that team. Stayed up way too late last night. Well, I still appreciate you being here, Todd. So thank you. And thanks for coming. And have to go to bed. Yeah. I feel you. I feel you. Sorry about that. Sorry about keeping you up, man. Ignacio Gomez. I was there for Broncos Raiders at home. Great victory. Tables turned after the PS2 interception. That was the most dramatic game-turning pick I've seen for the Broncos since the salad day Champ Bailey. In the regular season, of course, we all recall Champ's pick in the postseason against New England, but that pick reminded me of one in the '05 regular season against the Chargers in week 2 of that year. The Broncos were getting beat by the Chargers. They'd lost the previous game to Miami, so they were 0-1, staring 0-2 in the face. Come out in the second half, and Champ picks off Drew Brees, touchdown, turns around the game, turns around the season. The Broncos go 13-3 that year. And PS2's pick off Minshew felt very much like that. So, I mean, of course, at that moment, the Broncos are kind of listing, right? Not feeling too good. They're down. Raiders are about to go up 17-3, and then that was a terrible snap. There we go. They're listing, they're struggling, they're going nowhere, and everything changed. That was a fun day because it was PS2's pick that changed the mood and momentum. It really it changed it for the Raiders as well. Changed their season, sent them careening off the rails. And then, of course, it was also the game where Bo barked back at Sean Payton. And when that happened, deep down, Sean Payton's like, yep, it's my guy. I often think of Sean Payton and think of Bill Parcells because he is the most Parcells-like of today's coaches. And of course, he worked under Bill Parcells in Dallas. And Bill Parcells would have shouting matches like that sometimes with Phil Simms back in the 80s when both were the Giants, because they were both competitive MFs. And it's why they work so well together. The one that I know Phil Simms has talked about is like Phil was barking back at him and Parcells yells at him, "Shut the bleep up. I'll bleep and play. You bleep it. I'll bleep and coach. You bleep and play. You got that?" And Phil's like, "I understood that, coach." They just yell at each other. There's one on video, I think in Indianapolis. It's a full-on shouting match between the two. But, these two passionate people that have the same goals, man. That's the thing. It's a game of passion. It's a game of urgency. It's a game of energy, man. That's what I love about this. Don't just stand there and take it, man. There are times when you have to turn the other cheek and say nothing, but on the sideline like that, it's it's okay. It's okay to bark back. It's okay. Albert Michelle Knoppers. I think the Broncos offense can beat the Denver defense. Do you agree? Well, if the Broncos offense played the Denver defense, I would hope the game ended in a 21-21 tie. Just as good as the other. How about that? And I say 21-21 because 21 is about an average score. That means each of them is taking the measure of the other. I kind of like that. So, Christian Wilkins, did he play this year? Somehow, some way he plays this year, I think. Ignacio Gomez, Cecil rocks, Mace rolls. It's a good way of putting it. I like that. I'll admit I have, and this is something when I get so Broncos focused, I can't come up for air. So I actually have to catch up a little bit on the Christian Wilkins thing. So, I think he will play, but I don't know the details as well as I should. So I've got to probably do a little bit of catching up on that. So anyhow, Mark checking in from Hawaii. Aloha. And yes, I will have another Aloha shirt. I know to call them Aloha and not Hawaiian shirts, by the way. So I do at least know that. RMAC 15, able to say where Barron's been lining up at. Yeah, PS2 shared it earlier this week, lining up all over the place. So I think part of it is they want to see how much Jade can handle. I think they also want to find the best fit for him. What can he do best immediately? And also, I think they want to use Jade to confuse opponents as well. To his credit, Jade can handle it cerebrally. Man, this dude is smart. Naturally intelligent, high IQ in general, high football IQ. It's one of the things the Broncos really love about him. And Pat Surtain talking about how they're throwing so much at him and he's able to handle it. That they're throwing all these, basically the work of multiple positions at him, and he can handle it. It harkens back to Chris Harris Jr. when he had to basically learn two positions every week. He learned outside corner and he learned nickel corner and did wonderfully with it. Only a matter of time before that dude's a Ring of Famer. And I think you see some of that in Barron. So yeah, like PS2 talking this week, moving all over the place. So come out. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. It's actually sometimes dizzying to kind of keep track of where he is. Like it's almost a job in and of itself. You're trying, and that can sometimes be tough when you're watching training camp. Is there's so much going on. There's so much you're noting from practice that sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't quite catch where that player was because I was trying to see something else. I'm trying to see the, which inside backers are out there. I'm trying to catch an offensive alignment. So I didn't see, where Barron was, that sort of thing. So you try to, we try to sometimes as reporters kind of work together to, okay, did you catch, I caught this in the backfield. Did you catch that, in the secondary, that sort of thing. So we do our best. So super processor football brain. I appreciate sharing it, but even the super processor kind of has its bandwidth limitations at times too. So I'm only human, not perfect. So appreciate the kind words, Albert. Albert and Michelle. Thank you. I'm just doing my best. RMAC, 12-hour day for the next few weeks, or that carrying into the season. Okay. I actually I had this discussion a few days ago. This time of year is always my busiest time. Training camp now through basically the Saints preseason game. So it's about 4 weeks where these are about 12 to 14-hour days. I have a little tradition. A few days ago, I went to the grocery stores because with prices being what they are, I do my shopping at 3 stores to optimize my bill. I get some stuff at Costco. I get some stuff Trader Joe's. I get some stuff at King Soopers to just make sure I get the most bang for my buck. And I get enough basically to get me through training camp. So I don't have to go back until camp is done. So I basically it's like I'm a prepper over there in my over in the next room in the kitchen. I'm ready to go. So holy cow, over 1,000. I know 1,000 is not a big deal over at OBT, but that's actually a big deal here because my little YouTube channel only has 1,200 subscribers. So like that is actually massive. Thank you very much. Almost Aloha Friday. So, oh my gosh. And over an hour again. We should name the defense the Orange Onion defense because it makes the offense eyes water because everything is covered. Yeah, and there were some moments today. The coverage was locked down. It was, I love saying Russian cover. Sounds like some gambling thing from St. Petersburg or Moscow, but Russian cover, it's working. It's working fabulously. So how often you go to Hawaii? Was there in April, saw good old Zach Wilson. It's been a minute. It's been 7 years since I was out there, so I'm probably overdue to go back. So been really enjoying this live stream. Only missed one day so far. I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone coming on. It's actually getting close to midnight here in the Mountain Time Zone, so probably gonna have to wrap this up here. Before I go, I just want to play one more clip here. Talanoa Hufanga answering the question I asked him about Bo Nix, and I have a standard question that I asked defensive players last year, kind of their observations from their perspective of Bo Nix. I'm probably going to ask a similar question to returning Broncos this year about what they've seen evolve in Bo Nix from one year to the next. But I just wanted to ask Hufanga his observations of Bo Nix after watching him through OTAs and minicamp and now a couple of days of acclimation. Here's what Hufanga had to say.
First and foremost, I think he's just a smart player. But then it's like, okay, you get on the field and you see how accurate he is, what kind of arm he has. I think that kind of, especially the first day of OTAs, like first ball was over everybody's head. And I was like, wow, like you have to account for those kind of things. And not every game that you play in the NFL, you're going to play a quarterback that can launch it that far. And so for him, he has that ability to just get it over the defense's head. And so that changes your perspective on how to play him. And so far, just see as a teammate that he is, great person, great player. And just seeing how he handles himself in the locker room, in the cafeteria and all that, I'm excited to play with him.
Maybe he was reading some of the stories that about the national media. Oh, Bo Nix's arm isn't as strong as you'd like, but yeah, he's fine on the deep throws. He was actually 6th in the league in a deep ball passer rating last year, according to Pro Football Focus. So doing all right there. And he's Hufanga's finding out Broncos look like they're in good hands. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But training camp here getting underway. What the Broncos need to get out of it, stay healthy, figure out who the backup safeties are going to be, figure out the receivers beyond Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims Jr., the next steps for Pat Bryant, for Troy Franklin, for Devon Vele, who ends up emerging out of that cluster. Figure out the edge rotation beyond starters Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito. A lot of promise there from those reserves. Figure out the exact role for Jahdae Barron, as we talked about him moving around, as Pat Surtain noted earlier this week. And I'll keep figuring out the best practice here for Denver football after dark. But appreciate you joining me here on this edition. I've kept moving it up a little bit earlier every night. I'll probably, with any luck, move this up to about 10 p.m. Mountain Time on Friday night to start breaking this down. The first day of training camp, it all gets underway on Friday. I'll have my wrap from the practice Friday afternoon on my social channels, on the Denver Sports Facebook channel, also on my YouTube channel. Of course, join Cecil Lammey and myself for Orange and Blue today, Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and then join me back here in the evening for Denver Football After Dark. And if you want to read my notes, they will be at denversports.com, either late Friday afternoon, early Friday evening. I know that's another tradition of a training camp that I like to do, a few hundred words of written notes recapping the day. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for joining me here, and look forward to chatting with you again. And as always, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, including the wrap from Friday's practice. Take care, y'all. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for joining me here on Denver Football After Dark for this Thursday night. Take care.